Yeah, I think we're more. I mean, Tartaria is one of the newer things for me, but yeah, I have more familiarity with some of the subject matter as opposed to the others. But I'll just get going. You guys ready?
Yep.
Yes, sir.
All right. What's up, everybody? This is the Cave Podcast. It's your boy, Jarrell. We got Danny and Jermaine, and we got special guests for you tonight. We got Dave and Frank. What's up, guys? Welcome.
Not much. Thanks for having us, man.
Yeah, dude, it's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome.
It's good to have you guys.
Man, I feel like Jermaine's kind of new. We kind of inducted him into the society, but we love conspiracy theories. We try not to get too deep into it because I feel like it's like quicksand because we get too deep into it and we get stuck there, you know. But we'll talk about that later. But you guys are specialists, I would say. Would you guys agree?
We try to delve pretty deep into the subject matters. I mean, we've been at it for close to 2.5 years now of deep dives into conspiracies. Basically, we don't release weekly, but we're looking into this stuff all the time.
Yeah, we try our best. We've been
before you started releasing, content. What drove you guys into not questioning, but like conspiracies and thinking of outside the box, outside the norm, and how long have you been, questioning things, I guess you could say then?
Or what sparked the curiosity?
I think the three of us have always been into it. We've known each other for a long time. And we usually tell the story that, if we did get together or hang out or, and just in conversation, that was kind of the rabbit holes we went down in conversations. And we're very suspicious of things. So especially in the more recent couple of years, it's definitely a perfect time to start a conspiracy podcast in the past couple of years. And I think really because we started just a couple months into this whole pandemic thing. So I think that was really the big spark was like, let's start talking about this stuff. Plus so much of it we're completely interested in ourselves. Mm-hmm.
So it was one of the first conspiracy theories you guys said, hey, this is, that kind of like dragged you in to keep diving down to more conspiracies.
Probably just like the big heavy hitters, the 9/11, the JFK assassination,
yeah,
questioning
Epstein. That was all happening right then.
Yeah,
too.
Yep.
Yeah, I would say for me it was 9/11. I feel like maybe because I was experiencing that was a historical event that I could say I was a part of and I experienced. And things just didn't add up, Like I remember watching that and being like, "Where's the plane in the Pentagon?" No,
big questions.
The towers, okay, like the steel beams, jet fuel. I'll buy it as a kid, but the plane not being there, and even that other site where the plane crashed and there was nothing there, right?
Shanksville,
Philly,
Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Those are things I was just like, I don't know. But that narrative went on so long, and then the Osama bin Laden stuff didn't really make sense. And I feel like that's when I was like, I think something's up.
I think the whole subsequent events after 9/11 really kind of sealed the deal on being conspiratorial because you're looking at so many weird things that happened. And especially with just the investigation itself was, the FBI investigated the FBI. A little weird.
I thought it was weird. I thought it was weird when I remember as a kid when that all happened. They already knew who did it right away. It was like it was Afghanistan. I was like, really?
Yeah,
we got that already, huh?
Yeah. Al Qaeda, and they knew everything right off the bat. It's like, whoa, okay, this just happened a couple. I mean, I didn't question that, but I mean, now as an adult, you can look back and like, how did this happen so quickly?
Nah, now as an adult, it's like, damn, it vaporized everything except for their wallets and their ID.
Yeah, their passports.
Right. It melted the metal beams. Jet fuel melted those beams, but their passports were intact. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I need that passport.
The plane vaporized, but the Pentagon.
And then I remember, what was it, like in high school, that documentary came out called Loose Change, and that kind of as a grown, like not grown up, but I was older, I was able to comprehend. I was like, whoa, that kind of sucked me into like looking at more conspiracies. And then I started diving into like the dumber conspiracies, like things that just were flat out dumb. And then things like, birds aren't real.
Hey,
those are the fun ones.
Once you start to get real outlandish, it gets fun.
you can get very, very deep very, very quickly. That's crazy. And it's all we really try to keep things like right in the middle. Even though there's three of us, we all try to not lean towards one side. There's obviously certain things that we all agree on, like with 9/11, for example, is something that I think the three of us unanimously in our two-parter that we did were like, that probably didn't come down from just jet fuel. So that was one like unanimous, the three of us decided on. But then there's other things where we go three different ways on stuff, and we try to keep it really more informational than opinionated, because once you start getting into opinionated stuff, then it's good content, but you really start to look like a bigot real quick.
It gets cultish, kind of.
Yeah, cultish is probably the best word for it. Yeah, because then you're getting into stuff, and people are like, "Well, they're part of Q, aren't they?" Like,
oh no,
and it gets crazy.
Right. Yeah. I spent a lot of late nights going on Reddit and just reading through everyone's posts, and a lot of them are funny because they make fun of the Q people's like reptilian. I was like, I don't know, I want to see why they feel this way. So you dive deeper and you're like, wow, that's crazy. And then it leads to this one guy who murdered his kids because he thought they were going to turn into reptiles. I was like, oh no.
Wasn't that recent? That was
pretty recent. Yeah. He was just so sucked into the QAnon thing, and he believed his children were reptiles, so he murdered them.
I didn't even hear about that.
That's wild.
He might have been. I'm just kidding. It's good that you have a few friends that are into it too, so you could bounce ideas off and be like, "Hey, man, I think it's time to take a break."
Yeah.
Some other things,
A little reality check every now and then is a good thing.
But also, it's like, hey, I think there is something there, because I was doing my own research and I read something that was sort of similar to what you're talking about. So it's got its pros, but I feel like the bigger that group gets, then you get a lot of more those people that just agree with what you say, which could get cultish. So just an inner circle that keeps it real with you. I feel like that's what we have, and I feel like that's what you guys have too. So that's pretty cool.
We wouldn't mind being a cult.
I mean, we do joke about it all the time. Like, we are a cult, but we're not a cult.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I think Jermaine is having some connection issues.
Oh no.
Yo. Yeah, he's out. All right. So, so you brought up birds are fake. That's something I kind of just saw on TikTok scrolling, and I was like, do you guys ever go through those where you see something so outlandish, you're like, oh, this is stupid, but then later on you come back to it and it's like, wow, this might have actually been some shit.
Here's the thing with birds aren't real. In my mind, it stems around pigeons in particular. I don't think anybody's doubting the authenticity of like a bald eagle as a bird, but pigeons in particular. Have you ever seen a baby pigeon or a nest of baby pigeons?
Yeah, they're all just the same size, right?
I don't know. I've never seen one.
Yeah, I think you've never seen it, right?
like an actual baby pigeon. Like, you've seen ducklings, obviously, but have you seen like a pigeon in its like baby form?
No, like
out in public. Like,
based off recollection, I haven't seen a nest. I just seen them all kind of like a copy pasted version of themselves.
yeah, like a bunch
Everywhere.
There might be crow too.
There might be an obviously pregnant looking one, but I haven't really followed to see. That would be a good experiment, you know. Just take one of those pregnant ones and see what's up.
Let it be known that Frankie believes that pigeons are actual little robotic surveillance creatures.
I don't know about that, but they do be acting a little bit sus sometimes.
Yeah, I agree.
That one we haven't touched yet.
No, we haven't gotten into birds aren't real, so I can't really throw any like crazy conspiracy stuff about that, other than the fact that it's just government surveillance.
It is the inspiration to our. It is the inspiration to our logo, though. So
it is.
No way.
It is. Yeah,
that is awesome.
Nice.
like the camera bird. Yeah.
Full circle.
The one Jarizi back in the day, him and I would discuss, and he believes is that insects are insects are what UFOs, right? Or they're not from this world.
I initially thought
not UFOs, aliens.
Yeah, because I was like a mind to be able to process flight and like to operate a vision that like flies and mosquito and spiders have. That's got to be like a super complex brain or neurological system to be able to operate and function all that at the same time. So I was thinking that even like flies and mosquitoes, they would go and, you know, at the time I was thinking that they would suck up your blood to get a DNA sample and transfer that to the mother base.
Holy shit.
So, I mean, I don't know. Have you guys, I mean, also like you see these movies where aliens are kind of depicted like a spider looking creature, right? So
like an insect looking creature.
Maybe to survive, they just shrank down to a size where they're not really considered a threat and they could kind of just live amongst us. That was my theory that bugs could be aliens. That was a while back up.
Probably more ants and spiders around in the walls of your building you live in than there are people in the United States, at least, you know, or even the world, maybe, you know. Bugs outweigh us like crazy.
And what brings a little bit of weight to that, which is very interesting. I've never heard this thought. But if you've ever seen like super high def images of different insects, like super up close, it's totally alien. It's nothing like any other living, breathing thing on this planet. Like, for sure. Like an up close
Take
of like a bee or a praying mantis, even. Yeah. Crazy shit.
I mean, they have exoskeletons. Like, that's alien to us. You know, even if you're fish, you know, that's alien. Even if you're a bird, you know, like you lay eggs or you're a mammal, that's still alien to have your skeleton on the outside.
Right.
It's weird. And we eat them all the time. And they get weirder in the ocean too. So that's the crazy thing.
That could be like a nesting egg to a broader conspiracy that all life on Earth originated from elsewhere.
Huh.
You know?
I see.
Maybe we're the aliens.
Yeah, I mean, because like, what is this? I've had conversations with people about, you know, when we talk about religion and aliens, and I mean, by definition, the term alien means just a being from another space, right? A foreign being?
Just something foreign. Yeah, nothing.
I mean, technically, people could be aliens from another country. So I would argue that God is technically an alien. Angels and demons are technically aliens. So I feel like aliens gets the term alien gets put in a box where it's like, oh, the grays, you know, the outer space UFOs, and it does, and it
little green men.
It limits like this concept of maybe bugs or some sort of aliens, fish. I don't know.
Dave, I'm sure you'll be familiar with this. I was actually just having this conversation with my girlfriend on the way home from McDonald's tonight. On the Joe Rogan Experience, they have a little back and forth about how Joe at one point thought that thoughts could be alien, whether not necessarily from like outer space, but some sort of like interdimensional thing. Do you remember that, Dave? Him saying that thoughts are aliens.
I feel like if it's going to be from any episode, it's going to be something where they talked about psychedelics.
Yeah.
It was a Duncan Trussell episode.
It could have been a Duncan Trussell episode. Yeah. It sounds like something that him and Duncan Trussell would go down that hole with. Yeah, I mean, it could be when you're talking about consciousness and we don't know what it is, especially if you take psilocybin or something like that and you go off to a whole nother spot, or even, obviously the top form of everything, DMT, like that's gotta be, if you're having people talk about and saying that they communicate with other entities, then maybe, in your id and your ego, the positive side on your shoulder, the negative side, maybe your thoughts are just, but then you can also bring that into, maybe they're not aliens, but maybe the sim theory thing just kind of has more weight at that point because it's just somebody programming in what the fuck you're thinking. So,
right.
That's right. That's nuts.
You could keep going. You could be like, oh, let's open this door.
Right.
And then that room has 3 doors and you open up another one and then you slide down a slide and you're like, oh God, there's more. And
get trapped in the mirror room of conspiracies.
Yeah.
Seriously, that could get easy. You find yourself in that. Yeah, it's way too easy. But as far as like,
it's really
thoughts being a entity or whatever, even entities are aliens because interdimensionally they're from another space. You would classify and put them as aliens too. And I saw that you guys had Vincent Field on your podcast recently, right? Mm-hmm. We talked about UFOs being some kind of metaphysical vehicle, because we talked about astral projection, and in movies they depict astral projection as a floating way of mobility. Like you don't really walk, you don't really jump, there's no vehicle that you're riding like a mystical horse, you just kind of float. And we're talking about the new theory that maybe UFOs are interdimensional instead of actually from our space. That's why they move in ways that we can't really comprehend. So I was thinking that maybe a UFO was a interdimensional vehicle that traveled and was propelled by your ambitions and your thoughts and your attention. So you would kind of think about where you're going and you just go there, essentially floating, but inside of a vehicle. So, like that. Do you guys think that UFOs, UFO is one of the talking points. You guys think that UFOs are actually a physical being or a physical vehicle that's from outer space or like inner Earth or wherever? Or do you think it's more interdimensional?
I think it could be both, or every narrative. It could be our own government in certain lights and certain crafts. There is the patents for the TR-3B, which is a very, very widely seen triangle formation that a lot of people see. I've seen it myself in Connecticut over a decade ago, and very close. And it was a weird experience. But then you can talk about, all these, if you're talking about interdimensional craft, then you're talking about time, things interacting with our time and space. And we're pretty weak dimensional creatures, at least on the physical level, and not maybe in the conscious, but we don't even know that aspect. Unless you've done psychedelics, people really don't know that aspect of a whole nother dimension inside what we have as physical. But I think it's very, very, very possible that a lot of these things are something on a whole different wavelength of senses. Especially, I think Mike and I, one of our other co-hosts, always have the conversation that we think like demonic possession is interdimensional beings or something like that are or sleep paralysis demons, stuff, anything like that is something that's crossing the veil essentially. And then there could quite possibly be transmedium intergalactic crafts that we're interacting with. I think the sky's really the limit, of what we could be interacting with all of those things. And those all could be UFOs or UAPs or whatever we're dealing with, which is, He's fucking scary. Because if that's all four of those things that you're dealing with at once, then our reality is not the reality that we perceive.
Yeah, your universe shrinks with just one of those being real, but all four together, goddamn.
Yeah,
it's like what is real then?
I think the scariest would be interdimensional. I mean, having a physical entity visiting us, that's what we would do. So that feels actually less alien to me than even though it could be if it's from another world or even another galaxy or somewhere else. But then there's the big possibility that, you know, whether these videos are real and credible that the Navy has been pumping out the last couple of years, which I think, you know, why would these guys, you know, say all this stuff unless they're just paid opposition to make us all look stupid. A lot of transmedium. So you're talking about underwater to air, and then that holds a little bit of a theory with Hollow Earth too, where there could be something else going on entirely. It's so strange. It's just, don't become a conspiracy theorist.
It all ties together somehow, you know.
Yeah,
all these
it
little
does.
conspiracies, if you think about it, it just chains together, and then I mean it makes sense, and it's what intrigues you. Like you said, there'll be a conspiracy theories because you'll dive even more because you just see it all makes sense, or your mind is trying to make sense of it as well.
Yeah, it's honestly incredible. We keep telling ourselves. It's like every couple of weeks we have another one of those realizations of, oh shit, it's all connected, and it hasn't stopped. And it literally hasn't stopped.
And one big thing that we've connected.
Yeah,
I thought you were going there. Yeah,
no, I left that out.
I mean, it's big. It's really big. I mean, we've even talked about it with the moon landings and Hollow Earth and Antarctica. Some of the things that you guys want to talk about. Out of how many episodes we've done? 61 episodes that we've done that have been released in different conspiracies. At least like 2/3 of them connect back to Nazis. Like, it's just crazy.
Wow.
And that's even the UFO stuff. Like, you know, you have the dieback, you know, like stuff. It's just Antarctica, especially, right? And then Hollow Earth kind of goes along, I guess, with the whole Antarctic mysteries.
I would say let's dive into the talking points then. You know, and the first one that we would like to discuss about is the moon landing. From what I understand, and I don't know it very well, and I'll say that off the bat. But from my understanding is that in the moon landing, you know, we never made it to the moon. It was all shot in a studio, and that's all I know. So, let's dive in. I mean, what are the extra details, and then what, you know, what's the conspiracy behind it, and yeah, let's go from there.
Well, it's kind of weird too. I feel like if we've been to the moon, we would continue to go to the moon.
NASA claims we lost the technology,
and we taped over the tape, right?
yeah.
We lost the computers that were the size of my apartment's bedroom, but you know, let's not talk about that.
All the technology that we had to get there, it got destroyed somehow. All of those that happened coincidentally.
A big thing with, and I hate to break it to you, the moon landings might also have to do with the Nazis a little bit, just because of NASA and how the Nazis infiltrated NASA, Operation
right. Yeah.
But a big thing with the moon landing being fake is Stanley Kubrick trying to take credit for filming the moon landings. Kubrick was the director of Apollo 11, A Space Odyssey. Apollo what? A Space Odyssey, right?
2001.
2001, A Space Odyssey. That's right.
He worked. He supposedly did the Apollo 11's 11 and 12's footage.
And he would have been the best person to do it.
Because he was making 2001 around the same time that they did the moon landings. So he had the sets, the technology, the Hollywood, you know, pull to make that look as good as it would in a movie at that point in time.
Yeah, people refer back to that movie too to see how like accurately they depicted outer space at that time, which is incredible.
There's
another big. No, go for it.
Outer space.
Another huge thing with the moon landings that you need to take into consideration is the space race. We had Russia and the United States battling for space superiority, whatever it may be. And Russia was ahead of the game with the launch of their satellite Sputnik. That's Sputnik, right.
Yeah.
And Yuri Gagarin was the first man in space in the early 60s. Yeah.
So the U.S. kind of had to jump the gun, according to the conspiracy, and make some sort of huge leap out into space before Russia did to sort of claim that title. And there was two ways that they could do that. Either actually send a man to the moon, which is incredibly difficult, or use Stanley Kubrick's existing set, pay off a couple of people, and have it done within a week.
Or nuke it.
Just kidding. Or nuke it. Just nuke the shit out of Russia. Russia can't go to the moon if it doesn't exist anymore.
Can you do that?
There's also a couple other things that are really questionable. One, the spacecraft itself. I mean, you're literally putting somebody up there in an environment that's obviously hostile to humans,
right,
and lethal to humans, and you're putting it in with like tinfoil and like real you see like the gold foil on top of it. It's such a rickety piece of equipment, and that was only the 60s. And my point with that is like we have the Van Allen radiation belts around Earth, and a lot of people are saying that these guys would have been fried if they went through it. And I think in 2013 there was a probe that was launched by NASA, and it got fried by a interplanetary shockwave from the sun. So like if these guys, but then it would also hold weight. Oh, we lost the technology because they don't want anybody else to do it. But with the sophistication of how really sophisticated the space shuttle program was, and then them just canning that. And now we're back to basically Saturn V rockets, the same ones that, were built by the adopted Nazis in NASA. And, it's really strange. And then the other big portion of it is you have the question of, well, why haven't we continued to go? And one question I always ask people, can you make a phone call on an airplane with your cell phone? No. Can you be flying from New York to Los Angeles and be like, I'm going to call my mom and kill some time? Mm-hmm. No. So how the hell were these people in 1969 watching live footage from 215,000 miles away, spinning at like 66,000 miles an hour? Like that's a very hard concept for me. I mean, we can't even. I get blackouts on hockey games. Can't even watch them. It's 2022. We can't even watch.
That's true.
So I think that's the biggest point for me.
I've wondered about that. Go ahead.
I'm suspicious. I don't want to say we didn't go, because then we really got duped. But we've been duped a lot in the last 10 years, 20 years. So who the hell knows
what's new?
But yeah, like I don't want to say we didn't go, but watching it live, and then the reaction of the crew when they were doing press conferences afterwards, of just being so melancholy, just like, yeah, we did it. Yeah. Like that's the biggest achievement in human history. And you're just like, it's fine. Like, that's like, there's a lot of things that don't hold up.
I was just about to bring that up. The post landing interviews with Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong, and Michael Collins. Have you ever been like middle school, high school, sent to like the principal's office with one of your friends, two or three of you got in trouble, and you get asked by the principal, so what happened? And you all kind of just look at each other to see who's going to talk first. That is exactly how those interviews went down. They would be asked a question and the three of them would like look at each other like, all right, so who's going to start our truth? And they would like build off of each other. It's just super weird. I would encourage you and your listeners to like go check out those interviews. They're super suspect.
Yeah.
What had happened was we went to the moon.
Yeah, exactly.
We walked around and we came back and
We picked up some rocks. We stuck a flag in.
I agree with Dave. I don't think it's not factual to say we haven't gone to the moon, because I feel like eventually we have the technology to get there. But like you said, it was a space race, so they needed to do something based on the time sensitivity of the events at the time, or current that was current. So, faking that we went to the moon was good enough for people to put us at the top of the tier when it comes to the world and the global chain. But it's weird. Like you said, a lot of people don't know. It's funny because when I mentioned that NASA is pretty much ran by Nazis, people are like,
by Nazis.
Yeah, they're like, what do you mean? It's strange that that's not a known fact about NASA.
Their director and the man who created all the rocket technology for NASA was a bad motherfucker.
Yeah.
And we took 1,600 other people too in the Nuremberg trials and absolved them of war crimes and just put them all over, not just NASA, medical field, and banking and economics and all this stuff. But when it comes to NASA, Frankie, wasn't there a place in Alabama, like a NASA Space Center, that was named after one of these guys? Or was it in Florida?
The super German one, right? It was
super
German, wicked German sounding facility on American
it was in
soil.
I think it was in Alabama.
Yep.
And then there's another guy, I forget his name. Bear with me for 2 seconds. I gotta find it. This guy's got dueling scars on his face. And I don't know if anybody knows who the dueling scars are, but in World War II, Nazis like to fight each other with knives, and whoever cut the opponent in the face first won.
Wasn't that Annie Jacobson? That's his name, right?
I forget the guy's name.
I think he had like the two. When you said dueling scars, that's why I remember him, because I kind of looked into the whole. I know I jumped in late, but the whole NASA thing, and he had the dueling scars.
It's crazy, isn't it? Crazy that you tell people NASA was ran by Nazis, and they're like, "Oh, that's crazy." That's their only reaction to it.
Or no, it's Kurt.
They don't look into it any further.
Kurt Davis or whatever. Yeah,
I don't know why I said something about Annie Jacobs and something else with NASA, but it was Kurt Davis. Yeah, he's the guy. There's actually a very famous picture of him showing him and JFK standing at Cape Canaveral, watching a rocket taking off, and it's just interesting that you see a picture of the president of the United States, only 20 years after the end of World War II, and this guy with like cuts all over his face, who's like 80 years old, morose, is just standing there like, look at that, see that? Yeah, we made a lot of those. and him and us just being okay with it. But we're not the only ones. Russia took a couple thousand or 1,300 or something like that, and the UK got some, and some other allied countries definitely got some. So a lot of these guys, a couple thousand of these guys, got off scot-free. And died in the United States as American citizens. They gave them money, houses. Just come on over. Let's go to the moon.
Pretty much.
Because right at the end of World War II, the whole situation shifted to, holy shit, we gotta worry about Russia now. That's exactly, because everybody had the technologies.
Yeah,
so
they know people. They had their people over there too, right?
Yeah. And little known fact, we we weren't the ones that won in Europe. It was the Russians that took Berlin. So, it was they were there first.
To worry about.
They were there first. So, and they took it. But yeah, the moon landings for me, like I said, I would hate to admit that we all got duped, but I can guarantee you, none of you in the 60s saw that shit live. I'll tell you. That definitely didn't happen live.
I don't think we went at all.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning towards that more often than not now.
It's crazy seeing like the technology we have though. That have you guys seen that what's it, SpaceX rocket, how it lands?
Mm-hmm.
Jeez, that's some amazing stuff. So I mean, I feel like, I don't know. There's also the there's that dome theory. I forget what it's called. The firmament theory, which also ties into this. It's fucking crazy. Like when I first started conspiracy theories, I would search each conspiracy theory, and then, like you said, later on when you find out everything's connected, it's like, goddamn, it's hard to research just one thing now because you kind of see it with eyes that this is a piece of a puzzle, But yeah, the firmament. So I don't know if if that's true, then a rocket obviously can't penetrate it. That's why there's those images or those videos of, when a rocket is apparently taken off, there's that, it almost looks like a firmament breaking in like neon colors in the sky. If that's true, then maybe that technology isn't enough to get there. But if there isn't, and space is how space is supposed to be, based on the current knowledge, then that rocket should be able to get to the moon, I feel like. So I would say no. Yeah, I feel like we got duped, but now we have the technology to get there. So that's
we can get to the moon.
We're probably
now,
there now,
but we can't. Yeah. We couldn't have done that back then. And like you said, no one has seen that shit live.
yeah. I think most of the superpowers are, especially China, us, maybe Russia. With what's going on now, probably not. But unless they're just sleeping us, they just got whole colonies over there. But I would say between us and China, for sure, there's definitely activity on the lunar surface. Like we just don't. I mean, there's a whole side of it that we don't see ever. So that's what perfect place to just hide. Right. And whoever has the moon, it's just like, like with obviously like with Space Force is more about cybersecurity, but whoever has the moon has planetary superiority completely.
Plot twist: it's North Korea.
Plot twist, Dr. Evil.
All those rockets that just keep spitting out, those are just the ones for...
Those are just to distract us, but they're really going to the moon. It's like,
so look at this. So, damn, it's all failed experiments to go to the moon.
Yeah.
I gotta ask. So we didn't land in the moon back then, but I guess what the new idea is that we've landed recently and there's lunar activity. There's people up there, I guess you could say. There's maybe bases. Is that the new
like alien bases or our military bases?
Military, maybe.
There's people in. Have you guys ever heard of the MyLab program?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so there's this thing called the MyLab. I forgot the name. Frankie, do you know what the full acronym for full meaning of that acronym
no,
is?
I don't remember that.
It's there's a guy named Corey Good. He's one of the people that has one of the whistleblowers that has said he's worked for this MyLab program where they do this thing called the 20 and back, where they age regress people and they send them to other galaxies and be a part of the Galactic Federation. They have whole colonies on the Mars, other moons in Jupiter's system, and outside our solar system. And he said that he's done it twice. So he's done it for 20 years, and then they age regress you back to the time that you were taken. And a lot of this goes into like the Montauk projects and all of that. So it's very strange stuff, but there are multiple people that have blown that whistle. And I feel like I would hate to say if Corey Good's full of shit, but if he isn't, you would think you would have got Hillary Clinton,
crazy.
Like you would have gotten whacked off real quick. But I don't know. I think, but that one's interesting. There's supposedly colonies with people on Mars. And I mean, we don't know. We can't get in a rocket and take off and know if there's people and if it is anything, it's breakaway civilization or military. And if it's breakaway civilization, then that brings the whole concept of UFOs up as well, being like, well, that might not be any of us, but it might be us. So
it's super tough to land on one particular moon or even space theory, because there's so many different versions of what people believe, and a lot of them contradict each other. So it's really your best pick on what you hold true, I guess, if you're not trying to follow the narrative of the science from NASA.
Would you say that maybe what Elon Musk is saying about becoming multiplanetary species, he's kind of throwing it out there now because they're trying to normalize the fact that, you know, like you said, there's probably colonies out there already, and that he's trying to send other people to Mars? And do you think that's just him kind of like, you know, like how the United, like, let's just say the people, like the government has been kind of hiding everything in plain sight. Do you think that's kind of him hinting at that's what's happening right now, and I'm trying to normalize that so when it happens, we're not surprised?
Could be, yes, slowly. It's like a slow indoctrination just to get us to be, you know, not even knowing that we've. I mean, look at how natural it was for everybody to become addicted to cell phones 10 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, like once you start getting flat panels on cell phones, you know, and they weren't T9 and playing Snake, then like then you know then all of a sudden like that was a natural thing. So yeah, it could be him softening it, or he could just be a nut that's like, I'm going to Mars, one-way trip. You know,
I remember there was a website to sign up for those one-way trips. I considered it.
It's going to be a one-way trip.
Sell your soul for SpaceX.
It is
It's pretty much, yeah.
So yeah, my question was, if there's a theory that the moon landing was fake, do you guys think that this Mars footage we're getting fed right now is fake as well?
Ooh, oh man, I don't want to believe that it's BS, but it does look like Utah. Some places like Utah.
Man, but it goes back to what we were saying. Like, how did we get the video back then, the live, you know, from the moon down here? I don't think we don't even have the technology right now to.
There's blind spots in Earth.
And there's a lot of stuff, even like when they have I don't want to say the satellite, but yeah, the one satellite that went, the Voyager, and then there's it sends pictures all the way here. It's like, how does it do that? Like, it's so long. I know they say it takes a long time for the data to get here, but do we really have that advanced technology to send data from, I don't know if it's light years away, but yeah, long. No, not light years away, because that's a long time, long ways. But just a far distance.
I wish I could answer that because I'm not a rocket scientist. But if I was a rocket scientist, that'd be an easy question to answer, I'm sure. But I think even at Voyager, even it being outside, both Voyagers being outside, you know, our solar system at this point, you know, I don't think they can communicate. I think they probably estimate where they know they are, but once it was passing by, you know, was it Jupiter and Saturn? I think they went through by. It's like, I mean, the pictures they were coming back. I mean, it took, I don't know how long it took. I know that it takes, give or take, 8 minutes or so, or 8 or 9 minutes, I believe, for the light of the sun to get us. Mm-hmm. So, and I think Mars is even, I think it's like 16 or something. I might be wrong. 16 minutes, gotcha. 20 something minutes. So Jupiter would probably take, you're seeing it farther away. So I would imagine, I mean, with radio signals, I mean, we can pick up radio waves from, allegedly we can pick up radio waves from stars exploding light years and light years and light years away. So I would imagine if we can figure that out, then that happened, but it ain't live. I mean, if you're gonna, I mean, I think there's a live feed of one of the rovers on Mars, but I mean, NASA cuts the feed on the ISS every 20 minutes. So like, how are we supposed to know? They're like, oh, another UFO, cut it. Like, you know, they're so we don't even have a real live HD feed, which you'd think we would be able to do right now of another planetary surface. So if we're just taking pictures and cutting holes in the rock, I don't know. I think there's so many there's so many weird things on Mars recently that have surfaced. That little doorway thing. People are like, oh my God, it's a door. Like the giant door. I think it was estimated to be like 11 inches tall. Like, and it looks like it's huge. And it's like, maybe it's little, maybe they're little Martians, but but you would think things would be larger on a surface like that because they have less gravity. So it's not smaller. So Mars is strange. Mars is a tiny ass planet. It's like a little bit bigger than the moon. It's not that big, and we're all hopping and skipping to go there. I think one of the biggest compelling things that's really interesting about Mars is the fact that they, well, allegedly, if they're there and they've done tests, that they can see that there's been 2 massive nuclear explosions on that planet from millions of years ago, which is suspicious. And not just in the sense of like a cosmic impact. They said these are thermonuclear explosions. So strange. Could we be the aliens?
The aliens took our tech and tested it over there.
Just shot us on comets over here.
Imagine the master race that we're all thinking about. Are the Illuminati is actually the
could be the Anunnaki.
Yeah, the Anunnakis, or like a hybrid version of us that travels interplanetary. To tie everything in with the Nazis also, because it all does connect to that. Danny mentioned that Elon Musk is trying to make us interplanetary creatures, or Jermaine mentioned it, which is interesting because Werner von Braun said something similar to in his deathbed, right? Or something on his. Yeah, I think it was on his deathbed. I think he said something along the lines of their last play is going to be trying to shift the focus into outer space. And something along the lines about like, because it ties in with the Antarctica inner Earth theory, right? If inner Earth is real and that's the real like portal to space, let's have people look up in outer space and distract them from the caves in inner Earth.
Well, as above, so below.
Right. So I know his. I think his tombstone had something mentioning a Bible verse, right?
Yeah.
About the firmament.
Yes.
So is the firmament more of a, because that's a newer topic that I touched upon, but is it more along the lines it connected with inner Earth or flat Earth?
Where does inner Earth lie with flat Earth? Can it coincide? Because I would say flat Earth, but it could be both.
How
deep is flat Earth?
Seriously,
How deep is
That's
flat
the
Earth?
question. That's the question.
Okay, so
I would
real
more
quick,
correlate it with like a flat Earth.
yeah, flat Earth. Real quick. Okay, so on his gravestone, he had Psalms 19:1. And it says, the heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day, they pour forth speech. Night after night, they display knowledge. There is no speech or language where there is no voice is heard. I think the first part is the only part that he has, is the heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. That's on his tombstone. That's pretty bananas.
Yep. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, but then it goes back to the Nazis having some alleged flying saucer technology. Did they
right.
They have a lot of occult beliefs, and which could also be interpreted as extraterrestrial stuff. I mean, they're very, 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 their occult folklore really, really nailed into that Aryan stuff, which has very interesting because of the Pleiadian, Nordic style aliens. So it's weird.
That blew my mind when I got in, when I touched that, and I came across that in my research, that the Pleiadians were tall, blonde hair, blue eyes.
But I feel like they wouldn't. I think we said this in one of our episodes. I feel like they wouldn't, if they're supposed to be a non-nefarious race, why would they get on board with the fucking Nazis? Like, just doesn't make any sense.
You
Frankie,
would hope that they wouldn't.
What were you gonna say before I went an asshole and cut you off on that?
No. I was just saying that the firmament is definitely more
Flat Earth,
corresponding with flat Earth, associated with flat Earth than hollow Earth. And I hate to say it, but the firmament thing, I don't want to get too deep into it.
So stressed out, scratchy.
Dude,
Just like files of research.
I'm fucking buffering right now, man. The firmament ties into the fact that space may not be real, and space not being real would tie into the question of us landing on the moon. And like you said, even the possibility of a Mars rover. I'm not a supporter of flat Earth, but there is some very, very compelling space is fake stuff. I'm just going to throw it out there.
Right.
There's some interesting shit, and Dave's rolling his eyes, but there's some interesting shit, and you can't even deny it.
That space
No, there definitely is. Because I saw the whole space is fake, and it's just and how deeper it got, how it's just to distract us so we can think about that while they're doing things behind the scenes. And yeah, it's true. I'm not a supporter of the whole Earth is flat either, but I like reading it because, I want to see how wild these people are getting these theories. And sometimes you're reading, you're like, that's possible.
Yeah, some of it really far out there, I guess you can start to be like, okay, and then your logic kicks in a little bit, and you're like, maybe never mind.
Yeah, not to get on a flat Earth tangent, but they some of the biggest arguments that I think we think are the craziest ones are like, well, NASA has to Photoshop pictures of the Earth. Yeah, no shit, it's big. Like it's big. Have they lied before? Absolutely. But are they lying? And see, this is my thing. I own a telescope. Jupiter's fake. All right, fine. So all those really nice pictures they got of it, buy a nice telescope and go look through that and tell me that thing was just hanging there on a Christmas tree. So that's my biggest thing. Flat Earth. If you got listeners, they're flat earthers. They're just like, fuck this guy.
If it's fake, why are they investing in those big ass telescopes, right?
Yeah, like, and then we talked about, I think the other one we really, really crapped on, because we did a flat Earth episode back in May of 2021, and we got so much shit for it because we took the messiest dump all the and
good publicity.
We just believed that's what we thought. So we were just like, so this next one we're giving it a fair shake, kind of. Frankie's not, but is the flight pass? They're all like, oh, the flight. Why does nobody fly over Antarctica? Because it sucks. That's why. And there's nothing there. That's why. And if you're gonna fly from Argentina to Australia, you're gonna go under. Who does that? It's just so there's just so many arguments that are just ridiculous. But the ones that are interesting is the firmament one, because we can't get at an altitude if these rockets are going off. And I've had conversations with people that believe that NASA rockets are hot air balloons, and they just put on pyrotechnics and they just let them float up. And that's what happens. And then when it hits the firmament, it just sizzles out because there's that. But and then the sun being local, no, it's just I think that a lot of the arguments is just a basic misunderstanding of basic science, right. or it's flat. I mean, we have the argument all the time. What's it going to do changing your life that it's flat?
Right. I guess that one day when we all get whatever, if we pass away or however that happens and however our spirits go, we finally find out. Can you imagine how crazy those dudes are going to be rejoicing on the other side? It's like, I told you, it's flat.
Yeah. It doesn't change my jump shot.
It doesn't change shit. It's like, well, it doesn't change shit. We're all dead.
And now there's the flat moon theory. There's flat sun theory.
Flat moon.
Hollow moon. Hollow moon. We did a hollow episode.
Yeah. The hollow moon's funny.
I see hollow moon. Flat sun.
Yeah, the flat sun.
No way.
Flat sun.
You came at the right time, bro.
Yeah,
I know, right?
The hollow moon stuff
couldn't even read into a flat sun. I remember seeing that. And I was like, I read like 5 minutes. And I was like, nah. That's ridiculous. that was an interesting one. And hollow moon brings you to. I mean, everything, like you said, everything's connected. Everything's connected in some way when you're talking about these types of theories or conspiracies. It's
a hollow moon brings you into the sense of, okay, then the moon might be artificial, whether it be hollow or not. Mm-hmm. And if that's artificial, I'm looking at Frankie, it's like, this brings you back to Nazis and talking about Draco reptilians and soul stuff. And then you talk about Nazis and they're talking about the black sun, which is supposed to be Jupiter. So there's occult planetary stuff. So that's why I don't think that it's flat. But the moon could entirely be fake or made up. And that could be another reason why we haven't gone back or never went. We just did it as a ploy. Because what was that movie? Apollo 18? Where they get
that horror movie.
Yeah.
Horror sci-fi flick.
There's just so many stuff. There's so much stuff that you can tie just those two subjects into. And they all can kind of go back into aliens and Nazis. It's really weird how that works out. And we're sick of talking about it. Like every time
we keep finding ourselves back into that same corner. We're 3/4 of the way into our research for our next episode, and we're like, shit, again.
Antarctica, Hollow Earth. I mean, those two right there. Yeah. Especially Antarctica. I mean, Antarctica is very suspicious. I mean, one, it's inhospitable, I guess, to a degree. We figured out how to manipulate it. There's definitely people there. But why are there only 18 countries? So 17 or 18 countries that are allowed to go there. It's cut up like a pizza. Mm-hmm. And
the Antarctic Treaty. Yeah.
Treaty.
There was a treaty signed that you can't just go to Antarctica as a civilian. You need to have all sorts of special certifications and access granted to you for scientific purposes to even step foot onto Antarctica.
Right.
Which is weird. Like, you're a human, you're supposed to have free will. You should be able to go wherever you want, hypothetically, assuming that it's not trespassing. Why is this whole entire continent off limits?
I think the alibi was that they wanted to preserve the natural look of the continent. But I mean, that's just the best fitting sentence to throw in there, you know.
I mean, fair enough.
I know I wouldn't say recently, but in the past few years, I think like in late 2018, there was a guy that walked across Antarctica. I don't know if you heard of him.
No
I forgot his name. Yeah, he did it. So that's it's kind of going back to the flat that, you know, when I'm because I don't believe in flat Earth, but so when I'm discussing flat Earth with somebody, I always ask, hey, this guy, so did he walk around the edge of the Earth, or did he, well, you know, go through Antarctica? And so that's my argument there. Yeah. So you look into it. It's a guy that did it, and he has pictures. I mean, everything, and he did it all by himself. It was just a one-man expedition.
Just to get off flat Earth. Everyone's no on flat Earth, right?
No.
Yeah,
no.
That's a big negative.
Good. We're all good.
We're
all good here. Okay.
Let's move on. But so yeah, Antarctica, apparently, just to tie in, I'm sorry guys, but it ties in the Nazis because I looked into some research, and it said something about how, I don't know if it's the Nazis or Hitler, but they were really into the occult, and they were in touch with the Vril Society. And I guess the Vril Society was an occult society that believed in Vril, which was like an energy source, which ties into Tartaria. But anyways, it talks about how they are in touch with a being. I don't know if it's the Pleiadians or some kind of higher being, but they had blonde hair, blue eyes, and they were tall creatures, and they lived in Antarctica. So that's what kind of drove them to explore Antarctica. And I guess the story was when they went to Antarctica, after getting through the Arctic region, you find this tropical region. And I guess it submerges down into like a cave system when you get in there, almost like King Kong versus Godzilla. you go in and there's a natural atmosphere in there that's sustainable to a tropical landscape. And from there, they started building up bases, and they eventually retreated over there at the end of the World War II. Do you guys subscribe to that? Is there any truth to that, or what do you guys think?
I think it could. I mean, who knows? It's very far fetched that you can go inside the planet and get far enough in, and there's a light source, and there's clearly, I mean, from what we know, obviously a power source and a source of warmth for sure. Mm-hmm. But there was not only the Nazis, there's Admiral Byrd, who was a part of Operation High Jump, Operation Deep Freeze, and like the Nazis, doing testing in the North and South Pole. And, pretty much, especially if you can control those areas, you can strategically strike people, especially in the North Pole, without really being seen. But in his journal in 1947, he reported to go through the Sims Hole, and that is where he allegedly made contact with. He flew his little plane in there and flying in and saw, like you said, a tropical region, megafauna, like elephants and like mountains, and ended up encountering an ancient race that lived underground that was, I would say, pretty much described the way you describe it. And a lot of people think that could be the Atlanteans. Like that's another thing that ties into that. But when it comes to the Nazis, they have done a lot of stuff. There's have you ever heard of Agartha?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and that's a big Nazi thing, because the Nazis' maps actually that have been found have instructions for them to reach Agartha, whether it be deep inner Earth, and I believe, what was his name? Carl Unger. He said that U-209 actually made it to Agartha and inner Earth. What? And there is damn, Frankie, what was the episode we were talking about? Was it the secret space program, where they said that they in the early 30s the Nazis were actually outfitting U-boats for space travel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what? Just to put a timeline on it, when was High Jump?
40s.
In 47, 40s. Right?
47, I believe.
Let's look it up.
Yeah,
mid to late 40s.
Yeah, probably. I think that's when they found his. I think his journal entry was from 47.
So at this point, hypothetically, the Nazis would have been already well established down there.
It was August 1946 all the way through February 1947.
Okay.
So this is already after World War II.
Yeah, so I guess the story was they did their investigation. I think they went to Argentina, and someone said, yeah, a few of us dipped out on U-boats to Argentina. So once they got that information, they sent Admiral Byrd and a bunch of military backup over there. As what was their alibi? It was supposed to be like a science
to see test new military equipment.
Yeah.
And Admiral Byrd was threatened like a motherfucker to stay hush about the whole entire flight down in there.
And also around in 1939, the Germans were exploring down there, and what did they make it? They call it New Schwabenland or something like that. Right. That was one of the spots. Yeah. And the thing about Admiral Byrd that's really interesting is that he has like there's a partial quote that I still have, and he had said something where that the United States should adopt measures of protection against the possibility of an invasion of a country by hostile planes coming from polar regions. He didn't specify if it's inner Earth, but he said the admiral explained that he was not trying to scare anyone, but the cruel reality is that in the case of a new war, the United States could be attacked by planes flying over both poles. So I think he could have been just talking about it's a quicker route, especially if you're talking about Russia. Right. You go right over the Arctic and you're there. And but he, he was. They were told like, no, you didn't see shit. You didn't see anything, bro. And there's stuff even still surfacing on major news networks. You gotta buy through a paywall just to read these stupid articles nowadays. But there's even people saying like, oh, claims of a Nazi base underground in Antarctica. And it's like, why are we still throwing this nonsense around if there's not some type of weird truth to it? You know, like, is it just clickbait? You know, what's the point? What's the purpose? Or we're just, or just like our other co-host likes to say, like with Flat Earth, he thinks it's just a psyop to troll everybody, to make everybody dumb.
I think there's a lot of truth in that. I think they definitely, you know, throw a little bit of psyop trolling info in there. Like, let's say Antarctica, let's say it is true. I feel like whoever they is, they'll throw in some kind of psyop in that topic to kind of discredit it internally, you know, like a parasite almost from within.
Which would make sense, because I mean, imagine people, they know something and they just say, well, let's make the trail a little cold, you know?
Discredit, yeah.
That's
kind of
exactly
like what they did with Bob Lazar, right?
Put the breadcrumbs the opposite way, you know? It's,
You have this shred of truth, and then you've got a whole entire shitload of nonsense, and it just makes you look like a nut job.
But yeah, you mentioned his journals, Admiral Byrd's journals. I actually looked for that on Amazon. I wanted to buy it, but it's sold out right now. But I think he mentioned that when he went through that hole or whatever, there was a UFO that met him in air and almost kind of put him in a tractor beam or some kind of, it took over his controls. And he said bring it all back, the UFO had swastikas on it, right?
Had hieroglyphics, but there were swastikas on a, and so is the Kecksburg incident in Pennsylvania in what was it, the 60s or 50s?
But it was the late 50s.
Late 50s, yeah. I mean, the Die Glock, it was almost resembled the Nazi bell.
Right.
And, you know, so could the Nazis have been dealing with extra, you know, whether maybe not time travel or extra dimensional travel, but, you know, transmedium travel of that type of crafts? They entirely could have been, because like you said, Admiral Byrd had mentioned flying saucers, had mentioned a super advanced civilization, and he also said, I believe, that these beings that he had spoken with, I mean, he never said that they were aliens or anything like that. He just said that they were an ancient race of people.
Right.
So, which is even more interesting, because then you're talking about, okay, we got human beings underground and they're super highly advanced, which he said that they were upset at the detonations of nuclear weapons because it's fucking their shit up, and to stop doing it. And so they almost gave him like a warning to, you know, you surface dwellers are, you know, messing up our stuff down here. And that's creepy.
That's crazy.
I mean, if this guy was completely thought that he was pulled inside the earth and met something that said that, I mean, could just be crazy, but you know.
But would that be said, because of ancient civilizations, wouldn't that mean that just kind of like pulling back on the swastika symbols, because a lot of people like to attribute that to the Nazis, but
originally
it's like ancient and cultural religious symbols, and now the Nazis just identify with it. So now I think that's why in history everyone's saying it's all Nazis, but what if that symbol is just meaning it's the ancient civilizations? But
see, and that's a really good point, because I mean, you only have to turn something a certain degree and then all of a sudden it's something else. So
my personal theory is that these aliens had, or this ancient race already had that swastika.
Probably.
But since the Hitler and the Nazis were so obsessed with it, they're like, let's just fucking take that, turn it a little bit. And they kind of bastardized that symbol, because that's, like Jermaine said, that symbol is, if you look back at the origins of what it really means, isn't it
It's in a lot of cultures.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
Most predominantly, I think it's in Hindu culture. I think it's
and it's a peaceful symbol,
African.
right?
Yeah, it's like African roots. Eurasia, like I think Europe, Eurasian, something like that. So it's very deeply rooted in like Jarrell is saying. Maybe the Nazis just said, "Hey, this sign's cool. Let's use it."
Right. I think it was probably a part of their occultism and
that too.
And their way. There is something, because we were going to do an episode on Wolfenstein Castle, and which is sorry, it's like train. We were going to do something on Wolfenstein Castle, which is like the center of the occultism for Nazi Germany, and there are other symbols that do show up that could be like melded from other ancient cultures, but it would be entirely possible that if that type of culture had that symbol first, because it is it does go with old religions here. But it also brings up what the hell are people doing inside the earth that, with spaceships, because that's a weird thing, and that brings up Atlantis and alternative history and all this which is
Lemuria.
Yeah, and I mean, you want to talk about Tartaria, like that type. That's more, I would say, especially with the mud flood stuff, that's more recent. But when you're talking about these people, all these theories that go on, even one of the more recent in the last 20, 30 years or so, with Graham Hancock or so, talking about the Young Dryas impacts, and I think there's like 200 different underground bunkers in Turkey that are they don't even know how old they are.
Oh, right.
One I learned about a long time ago. They talk about it in this new show, but called Derinkuyu, which is like 8 stories deep and can hold like 20,000 people. And the mainstream say it's from being attacked by other tribes, and they think it's probably being hit by comets or asteroids, and they know because they knew the stars and blah blah and blah blah. So they knew things were happening. So you're talking about that, and that only happened 12,000 years ago. So if we're talking, humans have been anatomically the way we are for as long as we have been, and there's so many stories between ancient cultures that are almost identical in every aspect. When you're looking at their deities or talking about their stories, or even the names of certain things that they're not even. You could go even farther back. So bringing it back to Antarctica, you're talking about, could there have been something that happened that pushed these people that were super advanced? I mean, let's say the Atlanteans, for example, in lore, they were supposed to have existed antiquity for even the Egyptians, well back, and they were super highly advanced. So how do we not know that something happened again long time ago? And Antarctica could have been farther north. There's supposedly pyramids in Antarctica, which I entirely think that they probably could be. But maybe our planet shifts faster than we think it does, instead of just like a gradual thing. Next week, California could be up by where Alaska is, and we just can't even fathom that. So I think a lot of that could be with Antarctica too, and this secret weird race that could be hiding. I mean, could it be survivors from 200,000 years ago? Who knows? The gods, Yeah,
it's interesting because I feel like it's just recent that people started taking the concept of UFOs being, now they're UAPs, UAPs being, I mean, there's USOs now, unidentified submerged objects, and we're from California, and that David Fravor story is like close to where we live over in Oceanside, because we're in South Orange County. It's kind of between South Orange County and San Diego, but that's way too fucking close to home, man. And I'm already afraid of I already have thalassophobia, so don't even read up Catalina Island. Then you don't want to read.
Yes, man. Tell me.
My friend goes diving over there, and he goes spearfishing. I'm like, dude, you have no idea what waters you're swimming in, man.
But I live in San Diego, so we just had that 2 or 3 different UFO sightings over the summer down here, and I've seen, and people are like, "Oh, they're flares," but I've seen videos from dudes on the tarmac of Coronado Air Station filming it, going, "What the fuck is that?" And you got you got Navy being like, "Dude, that's not us." So it's there's a lot of Southern California is a major hotspot for UAP activity, major hotspot. Yeah. It could just be the proximity of military bases, but it's major. So yeah, if you want to look at some weird stuff, especially USOs, check out Catalina Island for sure.
Catalina Island does have some weird shit because I've been there, and even that dome building that they call the casino, I was like, this looks, looks like there's some history with this shit.
Perfect segue,
right?
Dome buildings. So Tartaria, you mentioned the mud flood was recent, and I feel like Tartaria is a new subject that I just brought up with Danny and Jermaine. I barely got into it, but essentially it's an advanced civilization, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
And they harnessed free energy.
Yep. They put Tesla out of business, Nikola Tesla out of business, pretty much. He was a prominent member of that, or rediscovered that technology.
Yes, that's what I read.
I think that's what, and he was laughed at. There's a lot of weird stuff. Tartaria, there's so much to unpack because a lot of people will go on this like World Fair tangent. A lot of people go on this free energy and then architecture and then mud flood. But then when you actually look at a lot of the Tartarian history, it shows up on maps from 16th, 15th century. So, and it's supposed to be, I guess they originated in like the Mongolia area of Eastern Siberia and that region. But I think, I don't know the year, but I know it's recent, 1800s is when they stopped calling people from that region the Tartars or whatever, Tartarians. So it's weird. There's so many rabbit holes. Like have you ever heard the conspiracy with Tartaria that the Wild West was a whole entire made up thing and all the buildings were here? Right. Like San Francisco here for 200 years, 300 years before it burned down the first time.
Huh. That's interesting.
I'm super unaware of like the majority of the Tartaria conspiracy. Like Dave said, a lot of people hear bits and pieces of it here and there and not so much the whole picture. And that's kind of where I'm at. I haven't exactly connected the dots. I've heard, like you said, the World Fair, the mud flood, so on. I've heard about the buildings in California that have been there for hundreds of years, but the free energy I'm not really aware of.
Yeah,
it's in the architecture.
Yeah, the architecture.
In the architecture.
The thing that stood out to me. Apparently, this is the newest thing about Tartaria that I read, that the Great Wall of China was actually the Great Wall of, is it Tartar or Tartaria?
I think there's a few ways that people pronounce it. Yeah, and certain Tartaria, and then because I know that there's been I think certain cultures have certain names for the region, but they all kind of stem the same way. But that would be really interesting if that's if that's a part of that.
So what I read on it was that there are entrances that are only available on that side of the wall, and the outlooks on the bridge or on the wall, they look towards the China side. So that's where the archers would usually post up. They're not adequately placed to aim and have a good vision of the Mongolian side. So it's pretty interesting.
Could be like they were the creators of it, but the Chinese were the ones that actually adopted it after they were gone or moved out of the region.
Right.
Yeah. That happens everywhere. Like when it comes like with architecture, I mean, just look at the difference between architecture in Europe and the architecture in the United States. I mean, there's some, like, look at cathedrals, there's a reason. And a lot of the Tartarian stuff they have, like what's like Red Square in Moscow. Like you see these buildings with these spires and everything's got spires on it. And even obelisks, pyramids, anything that reaches straight up and comes to a point. A lot of that Tartarian I guess a lot of people call it Victorian style architecture, and is very similar. And there's some buildings still left in the United States. I mean, there's some older cities like San Francisco and Chicago, New York, and a lot of those places that have some of those architecture. People even argue that the Empire State Building and the Chrysler Building are like Tartarian style.
Aren't bastion forts like Tartarian style or like star forts? Is that what
like
they call
star
them?
forts? That's I think ties in with it. See, that's this. I think there's a lot of fragmented stuff with this. I guess it's not even. I wouldn't call it a conspiracy. I mean, you can call it a conspiracy if you're talking about like the Great Reset portion of it,
right?
Which that's why there's so many. I think there's so many different things that people want to latch onto to make it one conspiracy, and I think that's where you really have to find somebody who's really into it. And I've been looking at it for about a year now, and I'm still lost in there's still so many holes in all these fragmented stories, and because giants come up in it, it's just like this whole but the biggest thing, if you could put it on screen, if you look up like Tartarian buildings that are underground, that's the one thing that a lot of people will put in. That's where they tie in the mud flood. If you type in, you might even be able to just type in mud flood, and you'll see mud flood in Seattle. I think Seattle, Washington, and you'll see like these giant mounds, like houses on top of this, just covered in mud and foundations. Like, I guess one of the big things that they talk about, there's you could see how there's half windows on a lot of city streets, especially if you're in New York or Boston, or you'll see like half windows on the street, and in reality there's a whole nother story, like story and a half, or maybe even 2 stories underneath the ground that it was buried. It's really interesting if you see because there's a couple pictures from I think like Pittsburgh where they were digging, and they were just like, there's a whole rest of this building underground. Like front door, everything, doors, windows, and that's the mud flood portion. But it's maybe that, and then you'd have to rewrite history completely in the 1800s. And there's but there are foggy portions of the 1800s. I mean, you got wars, and the Wild West is this whole fanciful thing that everybody talks about, and who's to say that there weren't advanced people here just not only a couple hundred years ago, and the entire story of us coming over here is just completely washed, and everything happening is for the last couple hundred years has been washed out. Obviously, I think we're not going to get told the whole picture. There's so much stuff, and I think that's why this is so fascinating, is because people are, no pun intended, digging up evidence about like what happened to a lot of these buildings that are all over, especially North America, where half of them are underground. And
I feel like it would only take a couple of generations to literally rewrite history.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially now, right?
Like 3 or 4, maybe 5, maybe. And you could literally just get rid of everything, start fresh.
Yeah.
Nobody has to know anything.
It'll be all over TikTok.
Yeah, it's crazy because now you could do that even with the source still present, And
a lot of it ties into New World Order.
Right.
A lot of people talk about that. Great Resets, New World Order, the changes of architecture going from these elaborate, things with, crazy spires that could be pulling free energy out to these bland, completely bland gray blocks that we're building everywhere. It's a weird theory. I want to keep going with it, and I would love for us to do an episode on it, but there's not nearly enough information yet.
I just came across this YouTube series of Tartaria being connected to an occult history, and those giant beings that you mentioned actually passed on how to develop this architecture to harness free energy. But I barely just got into that, so I'll shoot you guys over the link. You guys can
the giant stuff is real interesting. And they talk about how big the doors are in certain places in Europe, and they're like, "Who the hell walks through this door? It's 40 feet tall."
I got to look into that because Jarizi, he told me about Tartaria just the other day, so I had never heard of it, and So definitely, just by hearing all this, it sounds interesting.
I think, like you said, though, it's fascinating right now because I feel like it's sort of a newer, it's one of the newer conspiracy theories, and there's so many aspects to it, like it being hidden, it being erased from history.
How did it get brought up is my question. How did we discover this kind of stuff?
So I think it's really fragmented. I think a lot of people are pulling straws and trying to put like 10 or 12 things together, which could entirely be the 10 or 12 things that put it together.
Right.
But I think a lot of people are grasping at straws with a lot of it. You'd have to really talk to somebody who's real big into alternative history, because I think one of the biggest arguments too is the World's Fair, Chicago World's Fair, or something like that. They said it was built. If you can see the picture of this thing, it's crazy. They said it was built in like less than 2 years, and then they just tore it down.
Didn't it like burn or something?
They said it burned, but if it was built out of, what if it was actually built out of stone and then they demolished it? But it doesn't make sense. Or you had giants building it. I don't know. A lot of people go a lot of avenues with this, and
it's crazy that you're saying it's how deep that is with the whole giants thing and all that. Because the only reason why I knew about the whole Tartarian thing is because I was actually more just interested in the architecture. I didn't know there was like a whole theory behind it. Yeah. Like I think I was, because my lady, she's into the whole Victorian style, and like so we were kind of just looking at old buildings, and it led me to the Singer Building in New York, and how I read some link how that's like a Tartarian building. I was like, what's Tartarian? And I just started looking at like the star forts and all of that. And now that you guys are saying all this stuff, it's kind of blowing my mind. It's like, damn, that's just going deeper.
And then if you look at a lot of these pictures too, like that one's a drawing, but look at the first one you were looking at.
This one, right?
Yeah. Where's all the people?
Huh.
That's my biggest thing. You got all these pictures of these giant world fairs and all this stuff. Where's all the people? You got like 4 people walking around. And then that's another argument that they're saying, a lot of these people are saying, is that, well, they got wiped out in the mud flood. It's strange.
Dude, I gotta crack into this.
Dude, you have to crack into this, because
right?
that brings you into Star Force.
I'm gonna lose myself.
Rabbit hole.
I am going to lose myself.
See, Star Forts, though, Star Forts is very fascinating because that's just the evolution of the castle. Yeah. That's really they realized that, well, cannonballs, as their military power, as it got stronger and stronger and stronger over the years, especially into the 1700s, especially into the 1700s, they realized that having square areas is not that good for shooting arrows at people or shooting people or, getting, attacking somebody coming at you. So not only do you build moats, but you build these weird geometric shapes, and it makes it a lot easier to get into these nooks and crannies that people are trying to get up, and you're just like, gotcha. And then on top of it, weaponry got a lot stronger. So they build earth mounds around these castle walls, and you get a cannonball hits the ground, it's thump,
like these, right?
Instead of
crazy.
And then on top of it, there's a whole different stuff about like frequencies, sound frequency in Star Forts and the way that they're shaped. It's really that whole. I think there definitely is something to it when they're tied together, especially in the architectural aspect.
And I also just recently found out that bricks were actually a good conductive. They had a lot of electronic conductive properties, which was interesting because they used, I guess, Tartaria used their architecture to, like you said, harness energy. So bricks being a great conductor of electricity. Play into that.
That's crazy.
I would say it's definitely not the type of energy. I mean, if it is something like what Tesla was doing with the Tesla coil and pulling, electricity out of the air, the one thing that I've always thought about is like, how many people, maybe that's why there's no people, they all got fucking electrocuted in the air, just walking around, just get struck by a building, like that's the one thing I always thought about is like,
mass execution.
Yeah, or it's a whole different type of energy that we just don't know.
Right.
So, and I think that would be the reason for the suppression, if this thing holds weight.
Right. That's interesting.
It's a weird one, and it's deep. It's like it is like one of those ones where you're like, yeah, I'm just going to read about it for a couple of days, and you're like 12 years later, just your eyes bleeding. And you're like, oh my God.
Facial hair everywhere.
Yeah, I hear some other podcasters and other people that put on stuff about it, and they they can't keep a single track going. Mm-hmm. And like you showing like a YouTube video or a series, that's the only way to unpack it. And
right.
But you're still not unpacking it, especially in a 7-minute video or a 12-minute video. Like it's not. It's really weird. There's so many avenues. Start with the Tartarian Empire, then get into the conspiracy, because I think if you can understand the actual historical part of a whole group of people that you had no idea about until you started seeing this name pop up, which also brings you to like suppression of information. How did we just find out about this shit? Like, that's weird. It's weird stuff.
I think they're kind of putting on this. No, go ahead. Sorry. No, go ahead. Sorry.
If I go down this rabbit hole and I spend a bunch of time looking into it, is there a big picture like at the end of the tunnel, or is it just like endless fragments of the bigger story that isn't really put together yet?
I think
questions and
answers. From the video series that I was watching, I think it tries to use Tartaria to tie in all the civilizations. Like Egypt had some Tartarian influences. Greek had some Tartarian influences. So it kind of uses. I think it tries to glorify Tartaria as the source society that influenced all the other advanced cultures that sprouted about. So, makes sense. Yeah. I don't know if it's a video just glorifying Tartaria right now or if there's any truth. So,
it's a big one.
It's a rabbit hole.
It's a big one. I think it's just as I'm not saying it's ludicrous, but I think it's just as fragmented as Flat Earth. So it's I think, like I said, people are grasping at straws in some of it, but I'm very fascinated in the giants portion of it. Like you said, that comes up a lot, and giants come up in almost every civilization. So it's and then there are alleged pictures of people even 200 years ago that have encountered giants, and I'm like, and even I just talked about it on another show. The guys in Afghanistan,
the Kandar giants.
Oh yeah.
That's so nuts, bro.
Recent. It's crazy.
It's so weird. They described them with red hair, right? The giants.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
Red hair and like at least 8 to 9 feet tall or something like that.
He just hurled a spear from the cave.
Jesus Christ,
that's so terrifying. It's like the Predator, but it's like Seamus. It's funny. You did mention it, Frank. Are there any conspiracy theory rabbit holes that you guys have dove into, and at the end of it, you guys are like, "What the fuck? That was such a waste of time." I bet there's a lot.
I'm sure. I wouldn't say waste of time.
Like it just didn't hold water, or like there was just no big picture at the end of the tunnel.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Ooh. Trying to think.
Like you dove into it and you really didn't come out with more information. You were just running in circles.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of mine.
Same.
Tartaria.
I think the closest I could get would be like our crop circles episode. Unfortunately,
I would say, but crop circles we still had questions afterwards, and I don't think. I think we knew what we were walking into with it. Mm-hmm. I'd say, man. Actually, one of them that really I think kind of just we didn't. I don't think we lost it, but I think there wasn't much of a conspiracy aspect to it. We did an Okigahara Forest episode, and that was, I guess, less conspiratorial. Yeah, we kind of knew where we were going with it the whole time, even with the research, especially with like the certain paranormal aspects of it. And then, I'd say like another one that kind of like I wouldn't say it spiraled. It had good. We had good ideas on it, but was like demonic possession murder episode that we did. I think really just kind of didn't go. Did not go as planned, but it was. I mean, sometimes you just can't nail something, especially if it's true crime or murder or something like that. You know the outcome of it,
right?
And you're not like there's been other ones though too that we've really we just released a Tavistock Institute, and that blew the head off of all three of us.
Something that spiraled way out of control and the big picture just kept getting bigger and bigger was simulation theory. Yeah. Simulation theory, you can just keep on going and there is no real end in sight. Kind of like how I'm getting at with Tartaria. Like simulation theory, I looked into endlessly and it seemed like the information didn't stop coming, and you just kind of had to like put a cap on where you wanted that conspiracy to sort of wrap up. Tartaria might end up being the same thing for me. We'll see.
So simulation theory, for people that don't know, and I mean, just to get a better understanding on it, is essentially the Matrix is real, right? But does that go as far as our real physical body is elsewhere?
That's where you keep going.
Oh, I see.
Consciousness, your soul.
I think to end it, I mean, the conclusion I came to for that is that it is never ending. I mean, think of a cell. A cell has, it's like its own little universe in its way, and then it expands into something bigger, into a human being or an animal, which is expanded into fractal. The world. It's like, exactly, it's all scaled, and that's why they say the universe continues to expand. It's infinite. And so that's the conclusion I came to it. And yes, afterwards, okay, what's consciousness, the soul, things like that? That's a whole other discussion.
Right.
And it ties into quantum physics, and I'm not even going to try to pretend I know what any of that shit means.
Right. We talked about in our our 2-year episode recently, we talked about we each had to pick a topic, and Mike picked quantum immortality, and that was tapping back into that. And you know, that was one that I was like, why would you do that? Like this episode's like 1,000 pages long if we were going to do it correctly. And even with like what Frankie said with sim theory, we only spent less than an hour on it. Like we really want to revisit it and do more and more, because you had to put a cap on it, or else it's just keep going.
And it'll be the same thing with Tartaria. I'm scared of it.
Yeah.
It's daunting, dude. It's daunting. Subjects like that are daunting to get into.
That's funny.
For sure.
Do you guys have a favorite conspiracy theory that you guys find yourself always gravitating and coming back to? Like aliens? We don't touch cryptology.
We really don't touch on aliens too. We haven't touched too much. There's been mentions of it. We did an alien agenda episode, but we've never like done an episode just on like gray aliens or reptilians or anything like that. There's always been kind of a talk on it, but we've never like done like that. We do have a cryptid series that we're really slacking on. We have to do some more cryptid episodes, but
yeah, that's the only like super reoccurring thing. Like as a whole show, we try not to linger on like the same topic multiple episodes in a row, or even within the span of like 10 episodes, try to break it up. Yeah, so as a show, we don't necessarily gravitate towards one thing, but I'm sure each of us individually,
Tartaria is my big one right now. That, and we're going to do a Flat Earth episode in a couple weeks. So that's where I'm, unfortunately, my brain is stuck in. And
are you guys like just groaning to get through it?
Yeah. I am, because I'm sick of watching the same people just screaming at each other.
Next Level, is that the documentary by that one dude Himmler?
Himmler, dude, Himmler, Alex Jones screaming at Himmler.
Yeah, Himmler, I mean, right? It's Himmler.
Yeah. So good. Individually, I'd have to say simulation theory, even though I just shat on it a little bit because it's a never-ending loop. Dude, I got stuck in like simulation theory mindset for like 2 whole straight years, like super disassociated, call it mental illness if you will, but dude, I got stuck in simulation theory mindset. I was like, dude, I'm code, I'm ones and zeros. I'd be at work and one of my coworkers, he knew it bothered me. I don't know if it was from like a trip or something, but he would just walk up to me in the middle of like a rush. I was a line cook and I'd be like shoulder deep in appetizers and he'd walk up to me with his eyes like real wide open. He'd be like, this isn't real. You're not real. This is all code. You're not real. And it would like freak me the fuck out. But yeah, I stay going back to simulation theory in my own head, like on a weekly basis. I think about it. Like driving down the road, like, yo, that person's not real. That person's an AI.
An NPC.
Yeah, that person's an NPC.
Oh my god.
I think for me, I always go back to secret societies because we can always keep going back to whatever conspiracies in the past, but I feel like the secret societies are still running everything right now, and to look into the history of it and see what could be potentially be in their control right now is what always intrigues me. So I always look into it, like the Bilderbergs or the Skull and Bones or things like that. Those are always the most interesting for me to look into. I just get sucked into the whole idea of secret societies because it's just like the idea is just like, what are they doing? You know, like what's going to happen tomorrow that these guys are planning? You know, like the New World Order is obviously a secret society kind of thing, like the Bilderberg, like they hold those meetings. So yeah, for me, those are the crazier ones for me. But the simulation one fucks with me too, because I only started really getting into it because Jarrell talks about it, and I kind of dove into it. I was like, "Fuck!" Like you said, like Frank said, I was like, I looked at someone, I was like, "That guy's an AI," and I was like, "What the fuck am I saying?"
Yeah. I'd say for me,
differently.
It does, like a pessimistic way, right?
It's unfortunate. It does like Frankie, like you said, you get into these like, you know, in doing the research on it, you're just like stuck in it.
Doesn't help.
That's the one thing about doing research on certain topics. There are certain topics that definitely like will screw you up mentally doing the research on it. Like we did we don't often do 2-parters. We've never done a 3-part series or anything like that with episodes, but we did a 2-parter on the JFK assassination, Epstein. We did a 2-parter on the Vatican. We did a 2-parter on 9/11. And then we decided, let's do a 2-parter or a 3-parter on something that's huge and super controversial when we were coming into our 5th season. So we had to we researched, we really, 5th season really started with a bang, which was really bad. But we had to research Holocaust denial and Pizzagate in the same month. And that was like the darkest February I've ever spent on my computer. I'm just like, oh my God, I'm so sick of reading about this shit. And then we have to talk about it. So we split that one up and we did another 2nd part of Holocaust denial in June. So we had to relive it. So doing stuff like that, and then on top of it, like you said, the secret society stuff, this just scares the shit out of me because it's so prevalent. And if you haven't heard, like we talk about it with BlackRock, we talk about it with we just talked about stuff like that with Tavistock Institute, which is horrific and stressed me out, scared the shit out of me. But most of our live shows at the end of our seasons, we always focus on a secret society, and I think one of the biggest ones, one of the more interesting ones that we did was definitely Skull and Bones. That was
Skull and Bones is crazy.
Yeah.
That shit's just weird, though. That's just weird.
Creepy.
It's like, what are you doing? They're dressing up weird. They're like in the dark, like
they like laying
reading out of weird books. Yeah,
banging each other. It's just weird. They're just doing weird stuff.
What's the goal? And,
Come on, bro.
And like you said, at the end of the day, they're running the world. They are running the world,
and we're just in their little hamster wheel, and we're just going to do whatever they say. And I like to call the Freemasons, after researching, and as you go deeper into secret societies, I call the Freemasons the starter kit, because they're so out in the open. I was like, they're not really secret; they're out in the open. I know people are proud to be Freemasons. It's like
they got the bumper sticker.
Yeah, it's like you're a secret society starter kit.
Yeah, Jermaine and I knew a dude who just signed up to be a Freemason, or he just became a Freemason. But we were making fun of him. He's like, oh, he's like the Boy Scout tier still. Like he doesn't know the secrets yet.
Yeah, so he's
like the fundraiser.
I was like, are you supposed to be open about this? And he's just posting his pictures. Like, all right.
There's definitely something to Freemasonry, though. Definitely something to it, especially tied in with all the other secret societies that you can talk about.
Yeah,
and the 1%.
They could be the fall guys.
Some would say that they are the secret society too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they could be. They could be just. I mean, it could be the Illuminati by itself, just manifesting in different areas. It's just secret societies scare the crap out of me because it's the one conspiracy that is real. Like these people are real and they're doing something. Like Bohemian Grove, weird. Weird.
Bohemian Grove's creepy as fuck.
Yeah. Weird, but we've done. So we talked about the NWO, Illuminati, Golden Dawn. Frankie, what did the other talk about? Skull and Bones.
Dude, I want to infiltrate the Skull and Bones Lodge. I live in Connecticut, and it's like right on the Yale campus. I wonder how hard it is to break.
And then you got to live stream that.
Hell yeah, dude. Wear the GoPro and shit.
You got real big people too that, wasn't George Bush in Skull and Bones or something like that?
Yeah, he was. He was.
A lot of politicians.
Circle jerking his buddies in the basement.
Just to join, right? Initiation is a circle jerk. Fuck.
Yeah. Put on this robe.
It's weird, right? It's always like, why are we wearing robes, man? Why?
What's with the mask?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I know who you are.
It also brings into like fraternities, dude, and Skull and Bones. That really made me feel like that was like one and one, like
an intense fraternity, right?
Well, that's pretty much how
hazing
George
each other.
Bush got into there because his fraternity. Then he fell into the Skull and Bones from there, and then now all of a sudden, all these people are getting skull. Like, I'm not even that deep into Skull and Bones, but everything I know so far is like, that's creepy, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
it's real weird.
Don't they have the actual bones of who was it? Like a historical figure, right?
Who did they say they had? Man, I forgot.
Yeah, no, but I
Geronimo. It's Geronimo. Right?
Geronimo's skull. Yeah.
Yeah. What the fuck?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
I know. I kept thinking
they have his remains in there. It's just a thing.
Yeah.
Bizarre.
Come on, bro, just do it.
But I think that's their marketing point, right? Come on, join. Look whose skull we got here. It's like, shit, I'm coming.
I mean, you can't deny the platform it puts you in after, though. I mean, a jabroni like George W. Bush was able to be president despite what happened during his presidency. I mean, Kanye called him out, man. Like, he had a pretty bad run. Danny, do you have a favorite conspiracy theory?
Well, the one I've been intrigued on lately, I wouldn't say favorite, but intrigued on lately, is Great Reset. And I wouldn't even call it conspiracy because shit's happening.
Might be going through that now.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just like how, a lot of the corporations, the elites work in, inflation's high. Everything had to. The catalyst was they had to use COVID to like initiate something because everything was going so great, and you know, like, how about we just shut everything off? How do we do it? Oh, with the virus, you know, not discrediting that it's a real thing, and you know, because it affected a lot of people, but at the same time, like, there's, like we've said, there's people that control the world here, and so how are they going to control it? Oh, well, we should do this and this. That'll disrupt our supply chain, which will disrupt the entire economy, and so now it's affecting a lot of us, and you know, things are getting worse as time goes, and
every day,
like I said, it's not a conspiracy. It's actually happening, and
it's real life.
What's up?
It's real
so
life.
crazy. Yeah, like every day, like you think shit's already at the top, like you can't top it, you know, and you wake up and it's like, what the fuck?
You hear that crazy theory about when COVID was happening and like the whole theory, the asteroid theory? You guys hear about that?
Which one?
No.
So in the beginning when COVID was happening, I was just kind of reading conspiracy theories, and one of my friend brought up to me, Zach, he's part of K4V3, and it was about that the government knew that an asteroid's coming, they couldn't do anything about it.
Oh yeah.
And so they were having a shelter in place, and just they didn't know how to tell us, so they were having us just spend time with our family.
Oh, I
because
did
it was coming.
hear that one.
Yeah, because they didn't know if that asteroid.
And so I remember it was the beginning of the pandemic. I'm sitting there, I was like, "Fuck, I'm kind of spooked right now."
That's
like,
wild.
Yeah,
it does make me suspicious with that DART thing they just did. So, you know, and nobody's talking about it. Like, we just moved an asteroid, and they're like, "Yeah, that was last week."
Right,
and then that movie from Netflix, the one called "Don't Look Up."
Yeah,
they knew a disaster was coming. So that's when I was like, "Ah, fuck! Is this what's happening right now? Are they putting this shit in plain sight right now?"
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the whole theory was that a meteor was coming, and they couldn't do anything about it. It missed. It missed. But the whole theory
was
that,
huge, though. Apparently, it was like one of the biggest ones, right?
It was supposed to hit. So yeah,
April something 2029. Apophis is supposed to make a pass at us or something like that. And it's supposed to be a monster. That's a monster asteroid.
Yeah. So like the whole point was that they wanted us to just spend time with our families, and eventually that thing's going to hit. We were supposed to die, but we're still here. So
that is super sweet of the elites to do. That is very nice.
That's not bad, right? Not thoughtful.
Hey, time with your family, guys.
And get paid at home, you know. Take
scares with COVID. It's like, hey,
COVID
off. It's COVID-19.
That's funny.
Yeah, I mean, like that would be. I mean, what would they do if, you know, there was?
But imagine if they did tell us. So, yeah,
that means they thought it was going to happen too. So they're like, "Fuck, let's just
put everybody in their house and let's all go to Antarctica and not let them see us do it."
Yeah,
you know,
and cause mass hysteria by telling us, and everyone's just going to revolt. Fuck it, do whatever you want.
Toilet paper.
Yeah, that was the craziest part. Everyone's all going for toilet paper.
I was in Arizona. I was in Phoenix like March 15th. And we were hearing rumbling. We went to Walmart because we were at my friend's, and we went to Walmart, and me and my girlfriend were getting stuff for like the trip back for the next day. And I'm like, dude, there's nothing in this store. What the fuck is going on? And then and then we started looking on like social media and the news, and they're like, California's about to shut down. I'm like, fuck this, we're leaving. We got to get back to California. I'm not getting stuck here in Phoenix. And literally 2 days later, everybody locked up, couldn't go to work. Like, it was just locked. And that was weird. That was really a weird. I'm sure you guys like, it's weird everywhere, but you know, in Southern California, it was weird not to have anybody on the freeways. That was strange. That was
fun.
It was weird, but it was great.
It was fun.
And now we're all butthurt because it's traffic's back, and we're all like, motherfuckers.
Fuck this.
Seriously. Yeah, I think during 2020, 2021, it's hard because Danny and we used to be into conspiracy theories, and we kind of put it on the shelf because diving into those topics continuously, it does get depressing, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And it's hard to shake it off. Like, you don't just wake up and take a blue pill and it's like, oh, I forgot about it. You know, it's like that shit's still looming. And now, like we said, we put it on the shelf. But after 2020 and 2021, it was hard not to, you know, put that cap back on and put the shades back on and be like, damn, we're in the Matrix.
It's almost like somebody
and it's funny because it's things we discussed like 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah, like we weren't
like,
crazy, bro.
The shit that we talked about just happened. these passes that people needed to go into, venues and restaurants, like that's stuff that we discussed back in the day, and it happened. Lockdown, the controls, everything, the censorship, stuff like that. It's stuff that we always discussed, and it's like, holy crap, dude! It's really like it's happening, and we lived through it. I mean, it seems like it eased up a bit, but it's still there.
Well, now we're sitting in the. This is why we're not a show that goes with current events. It's we have a segment on a Patreon where Frankie and I talk about conspiratorial news that could be a little bit more fringe and sometimes on the dark side, but within the realm of that month. And but it's the one reason, I think it's probably the one reason why we don't release content with stuff that's happening literally right now. Like, because one, it's nauseating to keep up with that stuff, because I just found out today at the end of the day that there's like some, I guess, Russia accidentally bombed Poland, and now we're really fucked. Now we're like on the verge of Article 4, and it's like Jesus Christ, how bad can this get now? It's like we're talking about, everybody's making memes about nukes going off, and we're like, no, we're right here. Like, we're right here. And I couldn't imagine being a conspiracy podcast talking about this stuff every single day.
Right.
It would just, then that's how you become the people in the depths of the conspiracy world. I think that's how you do it. You just beat it into yourself every day, and those are fun people to have on your show.
dude, you guys got David Icke on your show. What we the did. Fuck?
Yeah, we want him back.
That's legendary.
That episode is banned on Facebook.
No way.
Yeah, or not Facebook. YouTube. YouTube banned us real quick with that one. David Icke.
That's the
we had Max Egan on.
Reptilian.
You want to listen to some weird stuff about lockdowns and COVID. This guy's a hardcore anti-COVID guy, but he's like off the grid, living in Mexico, like because Australia is after him. So he's
the whole fucking Australian continent.
Government, is after him.
Dude, Australia went crazy with the lockdowns and the mandates and everything. I mean, here in the U.S. is one thing, but Australia was.
I think it's bad. China's
you
bad.
couldn't even go out of your house. Like,
it's like here in the U.S. except for Florida and Texas, right? They're the only ones. They're the only ones that were just like, "Yeehaw, man, keep it going."
Right.
It's going to be really interesting to see how this decade and maybe the next couple are portrayed in history books. I wonder how much of this that we're living through right now, like you were saying before, like you guys used to talk about this, and here we are, we're living it. Is this story going to be told word for word to our grandchildren's children?
Because somewhere always the truth always gets lost, and always has someone else spitting some sort of bullshit with whatever they're telling you, and that's where the truth gets lost in all of this, and that's why these conspiracies become fragmented.
No, and that also goes back to what you were saying about how many generations it takes to change history. I feel like now more than ever, you see that the winners end up writing history.
Yep.
So doesn't take that. It looks like it doesn't take that much.
No,
unfortunately.
You know what my favorite conspiracy is that I really want us to cover is dinosaurs are fake.
Oh man,
that's the one that I think is probably, I'm gonna probably poop on you just like I poop on flat earthers. So it's take a dinosaur sized shit.
Why you totally think dinosaurs are real? You're sold on dinosaurs. You went to the dinosaur museum.
I went to the dinosaur store and bought a few.
Yeah.
I just think it's or I guess the whole premise of it is that for people that are listening that don't know, that dinosaurs were fake. They were a money grab, and all the bones are giants.
Right.
Yeah.
Apparently, good cover up of killing the giants, though. Right?
Yeah. Apparently, they have Smithsonian has giant bones. Just like they're not allowed to put it out. It's just kind of like in storage or something.
Dude, you know who probably has giant bones? The Vatican. The Vatican probably has giant bones, dude.
The Vatican is another.
They probably have
fucking
Goliath's bones in there, man.
He got his whole
Yo, imagine. Yeah, they just have
Dude,
it.
they have a whole dragon skeleton down there. They've got some crazy shit. They've got to
a
have
living dragon probably. In
Yeah.
place.
Yeah, so my favorite conspiracy theory tying in with the Vatican is kind of how everything ties into like black magic, dark arts, like some kind of spiritual warfare, you know? Like even fucking the Nazis goes down into some kind of occult, you know, black magic shit. So it's weird that, I mean, I also found out that the CIA reached out to Aleister Crowley and he did some work with him. So I just feel like the elite or the Illuminati knows what they're doing with these like black magic, occult symbols and practices and traditions that they keep up. And they try to make it subtle, but I think they're very aware and very conscious. And it kind of like ties everything with simulation, with New World Order. Like they try to control the narrative and they try to keep us in this, I hate saying it, but like in a lower frequency, but kind of in a sleep state, right?
We talked about that with David Icke.
If you're into that stuff, check out NY Patriot and the Occult Rejects. Whether you were to talk to them or just listen to them, NY Patriot, Occult Rejects, very knowledgeable people on that whole subject matter. They've like shed a lot of light on that whole entire thought process,
especially the black magic stuff. One of the guys in there is like an ex-member of an organization that practiced black magic and stuff. He's like actually said that he's hurt himself like physically doing stuff like that.
Wow. That's
He's a cool guy. A lot of fun.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
All right. We're hitting that 2-hour mark, guys. This was a fun podcast. I feel like we covered a lot. Where can we find you guys? Social media?
Everywhere. But if you want to find all our links, www.hushhushsociety.com. That's the easiest place to go. It's the one-stop shop. We have a Facebook group, so if you just type in Hush Hush Society on Facebook, you'll find us. Instagram, Twitter, and if you want to watch our episodes, we have a Rockfin, so check that out. Rockfin.com/Hush Hush Society if you want to see our faces and not just hear our sultry voices. But yeah, pretty easy to find.
It's a great name, by the way. I just want to point out Hush Hush Society.
Thank you.
It's a very clever name. So,
dude, your backgrounds too. I fucking love it, man.
The satanic symbol, Nike. Oh man,
you like that? It's still a work in progress.
That's cool.
The conspiracy board.
Yeah,
I mean,
you got to add some.
What you guys are doing, so it's great.
You got to add a Tartaria board on there. Originally, the name of the show was actually way more ridiculous than what it is now. So we had to cut it down to like 4 words.
I like how you have the candle going because it's like secret society shit.
Yeah, we got that.
I was just waiting for some dude in a robe to pop up behind you,
pull
you away, and then he's gone. Where'd you go?
That's awesome. All right. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Frank, for joining.
Thank you, guys.
Hush Hush Society. Catch you guys on the next side.
Thanks for having us.
Later, guys.
Peace out, guys.
See ya.
Peace.